We have a developer update from the Overwatch 2 team. So that gives us some good news. They're not giving us a new patch this time, but they are telling us some of the numbers that have happened, some of the data, win rates, death rates, things like that they haven't always been super open with in the past, as well as giving us a lot of insight into their thoughts going forward, what they're looking at for their next moves. So first thing they're going to tell us about is Zenyatta. That probably was the most significant buff on the patch notes, so it's not terribly surprising, and he did get a 5% win rate boost off of that patch. Okay, they decide that that's on the healthy, albeit strong position. So they buffed him, he's clearly over 50%, but even if they look for a 50% win rate, there's clearly a range that they're okay with, and he's towards the top end of that range. That makes sense. You might want him to be exactly 50, but the reality is if you turn knobs on other heroes, he might move up, he might move down, and you don't want to have to go back and rebalance him right away. So that makes sense. We've seen, as similar to that 5% win rate, a 7% reduction in death rate and a 10% improvement in kills secured. Again, makes sense. If you live, you live, and if you live, you secure the dual win. If you secure the dual win, you get the elimination. So yeah, that makes sense. Cool. We've also, of course, got the Ana decrease in win rate, and she saw a smaller decrease than Zen saw increase. She got a 2% decrease to her win rate, but she's getting the same amount of healing, they think, due to the increase in uptime on her biotic rifle. She got more ammo in that. Okay, so it was a nerf. We knew it was a nerf. That's not terribly surprising, but it didn't massively dumpster her, it looks like. They're going to then brag a bit about their queue times, which absolutely makes sense. Queue times have been quite a bit better. If you were staying away from the beta because you wanted to play tank and it was a 10-minute wait, that's basically gone. It's going to be rare for that to be the case now. A lot more people are queuing support, and if you random queue, you may even end up as DPS more than you'd expect. Cool. Then things start to get interesting. They're going to tell us about the death rates and how they started really looking at those. So just like they gave us data on Zen and Ana up here, they looked into everything, and they see the tanks are having some problems, but that's mostly coming from Orisa and D.Va. So either people don't understand these heroes yet, which is what they think, or there's some problems with these heroes. Probably a little bit of both, but you guys can check out what I've commented on D.Va in the past, as well as Orisa. And then we move on to supports. And at lower rank, supports are just fine, but in Diamond plus MMRs, they've seen a 15% increase in frequency of deaths when compared to live. And there's two things that really jump out at me. The first one's simple. Hey, there's a 10-second respawn timer versus an 8-second respawn timer. We should be looking at more team fights in Overwatch 2. In theory, there should be more deaths for everyone in Overwatch 2. That would sort of make sense. Okay, fine. Maybe they've factored that out. I don't really care. The next thing that we get into, though, is, okay, this makes a lot of sense to me, and this is a topic that I may cover quite a bit in a future video, but the DPS passive increases in value as players get better, understand positioning, understand how to use it for more than just sticking to a target that's running away from them. The support passive decreases in value as people's aim gets better, as people go up the ladder. So for most of the ladder, and yes, below Diamond is most of the ladder, people's aim isn't all that good, and they might hit a shot, then miss 2 shots, then hit 2 shots, then miss a shot, then reload sort of thing. And there's a fair amount of health regen that gets to happen in there, especially when you mix in any cover usage, anything like that. However, when you're playing against people with better aim and Masters and Grandmasters and Diamond, you're going to find that, hey, they hit most of their shots or enough of their shots that health regen becomes less of an issue. Yes, if the support actually breaks line of sight, they get to recover, and that helps them in those ranks. But if they don't break line of sight, they continue to get hit. That's a lot less true as you go down the ladder, and makes this support passive very powerful at the lower and middle ends of the ladder, especially with slower firing weapons like, say, fair rockets, where, oh, you miss a fair rocket. Okay, well, that's quite a bit of time. If you miss 2, they're regaining health. Similar thing with Casty. Similar thing when you mix in reloads from someone like Roadhog trying to shoot, Winston trying to stick to a Moira Mercy, things like that. So you can see some of this stuff at lower levels being, hey, this is more powerful, and as people's aim gets better, it gets less powerful. So I actually kind of look at this and go, do the role passives even make sense? Because it is a pretty big swing. As you can see, a 15% swing, that's much bigger than what we're looking at in terms of, hey, a 5% thing in things. Yes, they're different stats that we're looking at, but this is a big deal and causes the game to be played differently based on the mechanics available. But let's move on. So from here, they do talk a little bit about how, hey, supports are sort of demanding mobility. They're aware of the concept of mobility. They're worried a little bit themselves about mobility creep. Doesn't look like they're really leaning that hard away from it, though. Looks like they might be leaning into it more, in fact. But they do talk about, hey, let's maybe take some power away from Moira's orb and give her some utility somewhere else, which would be fantastic. Please do it. Yes, that would be amazing. So we've got that to potentially look forward to. Mercy, they want to make Super Jump more accessible, which I'm a fan of. You'll have to let me know whether you think this is a good idea or a bad idea. I find Super Jump is actually easier to do on the beta than on live. It's more generous with the inputs, at least from what I've found. It doesn't require any sort of warm-up or anything to do on the beta, but they've looked at this and said, hey, to quote them, Mercy's mobility has always been, to quote them, we just want to take it a step further by making the ability to Super Jump more consistent for everyone, not just the players who know the not so secret technique. So they're looking to make a way to find a way to make that more accessible. Again, I kind of think that makes sense. It was this bug that they decided was necessary to be in her kit for her viability to be, well, viable. And I agree it's necessary to be in her kit for her to be viable. But if it's going to be in her kit, probably just actually have it in their kit. It being hidden behind, a button combination is a little weird, so I'm with them on this, but I know some people are going to disagree. And then lastly, we have Junkrat and Symmetra. Not a ton to talk about with them. They know they're in a bad place. They're looking at Sim and saying, hey, May is just better than her in her niche because there's not a second tank to ramp off of anymore. Junkrat, similar situation. They're looking at him and saying, well, we can't really speed up the projectile speed of his weapon because then it just becomes a rocket launcher and that leaves his design space, but they know they need to do something with him. So overall, this is a pretty interesting update. Not as cool as a patch or patch notes might have been, but a pretty interesting update. I like it when they share information like this. It lets us see, hey, are they on a good track? Do we need to warn them, shout from the rafters, hey, this thing is going to be terrible? Roll passive maybe, but hey, I know, however, that there could be concerns about that too. Obviously, if they're too open to feedback, that becomes a little bit of a majority rule type thing or loudest voice wins type thing, and loudest voice or majority isn't necessarily the best direction for the game. You could even say some of that is what led to some of the problems in Overwatch 1 that, at least in their mind, they're now trying to revert us from in Overwatch 2 with removal of these stuns, that sort of thing. But let me know what you think. Let me know where you stand on that issue in the comments down below. If you're enjoying the content, please drop a like. Consider subscribing for more Overwatch 2 thought-provoking content like this. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks. Temporal out.